Today is new pattern day. Welcome to the Leah Tote. This is a very unique bag. Looks pretty normal on the outside, right? Just looks like a big tote bag. But on the inside, you have a totally separate section for a water bottle or some kind of water cup. It fits up to, this is a 40-ounce water bottle, and it slides in there, no problem. Look at that. Awesome. The other section is for all of your normal bag stuff. So you have a nice big open section for your wallet, whatnot. You've got a slip pocket on this side, and then on this side over here, it's always hard to show the inside of the bags. You have a zipper pocket. I think you can see that in there. There you go. And so it's kind of a two-in-one deal. You have handles that you can certainly carry the bag over your shoulder, or you have an optional crossbody strap as well. Okay, so you can carry it either way. Now, I'm going to tell you that if this bag, it's a big bag. If it's a little bit too big for your taste, just hold tight, because we have a smaller version of this coming out this summer. Pattern's already been drafted, done, ready to go. I just need to write the pattern and then it will be released. And that is just a crossbody version, much smaller. It'll just fit a, what I would call a normal size water bottle. So this has, of course, you know, your handles. It's got these really cool straps on the side. You have a pretty fancy bottom there. It works great for contrast. So what I would suggest is you do the bottom in contrast, you do the cording in contrast, you do the connectors, strap connector, handle connector in contrast, and then you do all of your straps and handles in contrast. Okay, so this is a great spring color. We're making this one today in the video. And this is new on my website. If it's not up yet, it'll be up shortly. It is a kind of a navy, black, and silver snake pattern. Super pretty. I do suggest waterproof canvas for this. And you know I'm a big linen fan. And actually I use linen in this one here. I used waterproof canvas in this one, a navy waterproof canvas. Because you have a water bottle, right? I mean, anything can happen. You hope it's not going to leak. You hope nothing's going to happen. It could sweat, depending on what kind of water bottle you have. But I do suggest that you do, use waterproof canvas. But even with waterproof canvas, you've got a slip pocket here on this side. Same construction. You've got your zipper pocket on the other side. And a nice compartment for your water bottle. So, without further ado, let's get stitching. Let's start out by going over the pattern pieces. So you're going to have a front and a back piece. On the front and back piece, I went ahead and used some Decoville Light and made sure that it was outside of the seam allowances. So you have one piece, they're exactly the same, one for the front, one for the back. Then you have your side gusset pieces. The side gusset pieces actually have Decoville Heavy on these. Okay, so you have two of those exactly the same. You have your your placket with your main pieces. There is no interfacing or stabilizer or anything on these. You have your upper lining for the sides, and these are tapered, so you do need to use the pattern piece, and I use Decoville Light on the back of each one of these. You have your side upper lining pieces, and these are just two cute little pieces like this, and on the side of these I have Decoville Heavy. Then out of the main, you're also going to cut a zipper placket. You're going to cut some zipper pocket or a zipper pocket accent. And then if you want a key fob, you're going to cut the piece for your key fob. You're going to have a bottom gusset, and I did that out of contrast. I suggest that you do that too. And this is just a rectangle piece. I have Decoville heavy on the back of this. You have your side strap connectors, 2 of these, and no stabilizer or anything on the back. You have your front and back strap connectors. Now, on these pieces, you've got 2 options on how to make them. This is what the pattern piece looks like. And you'll see that it's got this rounded edge here. So if you don't have a rounded punch, a leather punch, you can actually use the pattern piece and cut it out and then fold your edges in, which I'll show you. And then when you finish, you're going to end up with a really nice bottom edge. If you choose to use the pattern piece here, one of my testers suggested to put some Decoville light or some kind of stabilizer on the back of the strap, on the back of the strap connector, and just cut it 1 inch wide, okay? So this is a 2 inch wide piece because I'm using 1 inch hardware. And so what you would do is you would cut it 1 inch and fuse it right in the middle. And then it's going to help you fold it around. You can actually cut the Decoville with the curve too, and it's going to actually help you fold it around so that you're going to get a nicer edge, and it's going to be a little bit easier for you. So if you decide to use the pattern piece, I suggest cutting out pieces of Decoville light 1 inch by basically this shape right here with the curve. Fuse it on the back and the middle, then fold. From there you do the same thing. You're going to put your double-sided tape down the middle, you're going to fold these in, and then you'll attach it to the front of your bag that way. So keep that in mind as we go through. Or you can actually just cut these by the measurements in the chart and use a leather punch with some kind of decorative edge. Doesn't have to be a round edge. You can use a English point, you can use whatever you'd like, or you can freehand it. So what I'm going to do, I cut 4 pieces, just rectangle pieces, because it's easier for me to do that with a rotary cutter and a ruler. And then I will fold the edges in. I'm going to use my leather punch to actually cut out that edge, and then we're going to put a little bit of edge coat on it. You're going to have 2 pieces of fabric here for your piping. So we're going to make our piping. Now you can use pre-bought piping if you'd like, or pre-made piping. You can, no problem with that. But I'm going to show you how to make it. So I've got 2 pieces for my piping, and then I have 2 actual pieces of cording here that I'm going to use. We have a crossbody strap, because this bag does have the option to have a crossbody strap. We have 2 handles. All that was cut out of the contrast. Then for the lining, we have 2 lining pieces. They're different. And this is going to allow us to form our pocket, our divider. So the first piece is this here. Now I'm using waterproof canvas because it is a water bottle holder. And then the second piece is this long, okay? So you can see there's a huge difference between the 2, first and second. And you're going to cut 1 of each. Okay, there's your difference there. You get quite a bit of difference. So 1 of each of those. You're going to cut a divider stabilizer piece, but don't fuse it on, just cut it out for right now. Now, I had experimented a little bit using Decoville Heavy for this piece instead of Decoville Light. It's better with Decoville Light, so I suggest you use that. We have our interior gusset, which is just 1 long piece. Now, if you do not have enough fabric to cut one long piece, that's no problem. You can either cut 2 pieces and do a seam in the middle, or you can use the same measurements as the main gusset pieces and actually piece it in 3. It's totally up to you. Just do what you can, but I did give you a measurement for 1 full long piece. We have our zipper pockets and we have our slip pocket interior. Okay. For hardware, we have a zipper, obviously for our interior zipper pocket. We have a piece here for our main zipper at the top. We have a couple of, actually we have 4 rectangle rings. Now you can use some oval rings, you can use round rings, you could use D-rings if you wanted to, but I'm going to use rectangle rings today. For your crossbody, you're going to need 2 actual swivel clasps. I have 2 D-rings for the side connectors, and one's on the floor. I have a strap adjuster for my crossbody. I have a zipper end for my zipper, and then a 1/2 inch swivel clasp for my key fob. And we have our zipper placket pieces, which is 2 main, no stabilizer on the back, and we have 2 lining pieces. And that is everything we need. So we are going to go ahead and get started. Okay, we're going to start with our handles and our crossbody strap. I always do those first because I never want to run out of bobbin when I'm doing that, so I make sure I have a full bobbin and go ahead and get those out of the way. Now, I actually drew a line down the center of my strap, and then I put 1/4 inch double-sided tape on each side. I'm going to use my leather punch to punch a rounded edge on the actual side of the strap here, and that is going to look like this when it is done. So you see here you've got kind of that rounded edge, and it looks really nice. You don't have to worry about putting any kind of hardware on that, especially if you put some base coat and edge coat, which I'm going to do. Then you have a nice finished edge. So once, to make sure that I don't have any bubbles and make sure all the fabric's laying flat when I use my punch, I also put an extra strip of double-sided tape on the short ends. So what I'm going to do is peel these off and take these long edges and fold them into the center just below the line I drew. And when I say just below, I mean just not even a scant 1/8 of an inch, a 1/16 of an inch, just enough so that when I fold this, I have given the fabric some room to fold properly. So when you fold these edges in, just make sure you're not pulling on your fabric, you're just folding it up. And see on these edges how those stay nice and flat. There's no bubble here at the end. Sometimes what happens is you get this part flat, but over here you get like a bubble effect because there's no double-sided tape. I want to make sure all that stays flat when I punch so that I don't have the punch being off-centered or anything. So we're going to fold these in. And I'm going to do exactly the same thing on the crossbody strap when I get to it. So you're going to follow the same steps for that. Okay, so from here I'm going to take a little piece of double-sided tape again to just put on the very edge here so that when I do fold this in half, again, it's going to stay flat and I'm not going to have any weird bubble when I punch my edges. So I'm going to take that and just fold it and make sure it's all nice and even, and you can see how nice and flat that is. So now when I do my punch, it's going to be It's going to be good. I'm not going to have any kind of shifting of the material when I use my punch. So I'm going to use the punch before I sew because I want to get a curved stitch around these short ends. So once I clip all of this, I take it over to my punching station and I punch the ends so that they look like that. So now when I stitch, I'm going to stitch down, I'm going to go around this curve, and I'm going to come back the other end. Once it's all stitched, at that point I will put the base coat and the edge coat on these edges so that it looks really nice. The other thing that I do whenever I stitch handles is I always use an edge guide on my machine. You can pick these up at Waywack, probably most any sewing supply store, and you know, I can sew a straight line for the most part, but you know, sometimes things happen. So just to kind of make sure that I get a good, nice, even edge and that it's even on all edges, I use this edge guide here. So I'm going to line that up. And then the last tip that I want to give you is that whenever you do an edge like this, you want to make sure that when you turn, you're turning at the same point on each edge. You don't want to go further down on one than the other, and then it's going to look a little wonky. So my trick for that is actually to put little dots where I want to turn. So you can either use your ruler or you can eyeball it, whatever's easier. Sometimes eyeballing it works just as well. But I'm just going to measure 1/8 and 1/8 because I'm using an 1/8 inch seam allowance since I'm top stitching, and I'm just going to put a little dot. And I'm going to do the same thing on this edge here. 1/8 and 1/8, and I'm just going to put a little dot. So I'm going to make sure that my dots are lined up with each other. If not, I'm going to do a little adjustment. So now when I come down this edge, I'm going to make sure that I put my needle in exactly on that dot, and then I'm going to sew the curved edge, and I'm going to end right on that dot, make sure my needle is in the dot, and then come up the other side. And that way I'll know where I turn on both places is exactly the same. So I'm going to mark this side as well. Again, I'm going to do the same thing on the crossbody and the other handle. So usually I want to stitch the open edge first. So I usually start right on this folded edge, just a few inches up, not even a few inches, an inch up. And I'm going to pull my threads through the back, and then I will go ahead and turn and then go ahead and stitch this long edge, and then turn on the other side and stitch the folded edge. Now the reason why I start where I do is a couple things. Number one is I want to get this short edge stitched so that it doesn't shift at all as I'm coming down this other side. If I start here on the long edge, go all the way down, now if I have any shifting, then this may not line up again, number one. Number two is that I want to hide my threads in a place so that when I fold this back to put my rivet to hold my handle on, now my stitches that I burned to make sure that they don't come apart are on the back side of this. They're not somewhere in the middle of the handle. Okay? So I'm going to start about 1 inch above the dot, come down to the dot and turn. I'm going to make sure I'm right on the dot. And then I'm just going to turn and hand crank a few stitches. Go all the way to my other dot. and then stitch on up. So I'm approaching my other dot. I want to make sure I get right in the right spot. And sometimes you have to adjust your project just a bit to make sure you're in that right spot. Then I'm just going to turn a few hand cranks here. And come up the other side. I'm going to pull my threads through to the back. Make sure I start and end in exactly the same hole. Go ahead and pull this one through to the back. We'll tie them off. We'll burn them. Make sure it does not come apart. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and edge coat these. I'll put the base coat and then the edge coat. I'm going to repeat this for the other handle and the crossbody strap, and then we're going to move on to strap connectors. I have my 4 handle strap connectors here. So I'm going to basically do exactly the same thing as I just did for the handles, except for I'm just going to fold them once. So we've got a line going down the center. And these are the straps that I explained, the strap connectors in the beginning that I explained that you could actually put some depth of the light down the center of these, and it would help you turn around the curve if you cut it out in the actual pattern piece curved. We're going to put some double-sided tape right down the center, and I typically use 1/2 inch double-sided tape for this. From here, peel them off, the backing off. We're just going to fold the center in. And this time you want to make sure that your edges match in the middle. These long edges, you want them to match up perfectly. We're not going to stitch them on the bag yet because you need to edge coat the very bottom where the curved edge is. So if you use the pattern piece, you're actually already going to have your curve here. And you want to just go ahead and put some base coat and edge coat on that, and then set these aside. So now that they're all folded, I'm just going to use my punch again, and I'm going to punch that curved edge. You could do a English point, you could do whatever kind of edge you like. You can even leave it this way if you want. And then I'm going to go ahead and put a coat of base coat on here, and we'll move on to the next step. Okay, working on the side strap connectors, and they're done the same way. You draw a line down the center. We're going to put 1/2 inch double-sided tape on top of that line. I'm going to peel the backing off, and we're going to fold this into the center. Once those are folded in, from one of the short edges, you want to measure 3 inches, and you're going to draw a line. That's going to be where we fold the strap over. Take your 2 side gusset pieces and your D-rings. We're going to put these strap pieces right on top. So put some double-sided tape. Again, I usually use 1/2 inch. That way it stays out of the sewing area. And I'm going to go almost, well, just about up to the line and just cut it off. I'm going to put my D-ring on, and I'm going to fold to that line. Okay, put a little bit more double-sided tape. You can actually put the double-sided tape past the line, and that will hold this down. Now, one little trick that I learned recently that I think is really great is on the sometimes when you go to sew this on, you see the back part of the connector coming through. So one thing you can do is to taper these ends. So what I mean by that is if you just take your scissors and cut little triangles off of this end, like this. Just cut little triangles off. So this is what you have. Okay. You're going to take the ends and still put them all the way to the center, and you're going to end up having this little bubble, which is okay because when you fold this over and you sew, it's just going to kind of be eaten up by that bubble, meaning it'll all lay flat. And now on the back side, you have those ends tapering in. So I think that works out really well. You're going to find the center of your side piece. This is the center on the short edge because we want to center this strap. And then we're going to peel the backing off the tape and lay it right down in the middle. I'm just going to double check my measurement on both sides. Looks good, nice and centered. And I'm also going to draw a line 1 inch down from the fold. And this is where I'm going to turn when I sew the strap on. So that's where I know I'm going to come up to that line, stitch across the line, and then go back down the other side. So let's put some double-sided tape on here, get the second one on, and then we will stitch it right onto the side of the bag, or the gusset of the bag. So that time I went just beyond my line. So now when I fold this down, I'm going to cut my little triangles in here. So by going just past the line with the tape, when I fold this down, I now don't have to put an extra piece of tape. That'll end up catching it. Be good to go. So let's find the centers. And we'll put this one on. And when you do this, you're lining the bottom of the connector to the bottom of the gusset piece. So let me just make sure I'm centered. Looks like I am. I'm going to draw my line 1 inch from the fold. And now we will stitch them on. And you're going to top stitch using a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. I am going to back stitch because this will be in a seam. So now I'm going to measure a 1/2 inch down from the fold. And right in the center, I'm going to put a dot. That dot is going to be where I put a rivet. And that's just going to give it a little bit of extra stability. Okay, so I'll set this rivet and then I'm going to repeat the exact same thing for the other side. Okay, have that done. So now I'm going to take the bottom gusset piece and we're going to put that right sides together along the short edge. Put a couple clips and we're going to go ahead and stitch it. Make sure you don't stitch on top of your decobill when you do this. So from here, flip this open. Keep your seam allowance going towards the bottom of the bag, okay? So towards this bottom piece. And we're going to top stitch on the bottom part. We're going to repeat for the other side gusset piece on the other side of the bottom. So flip this so that the seam allowance is going towards the bottom, and then we're going to top stitch. So now we have the gusset done. I'm going to show you how to put feet in because it's a little bit different than some of the other patterns that I have. You're placing them differently. So draw a line down the center of your bottom gusset piece. And when I usually do this, I just draw a line down the whole center. I don't try to just put dots. Just draw your line. Then we're also going to do it horizontally. So here, and here, I'm going to draw that line. Okay, so now I have a big cross on the bottom of my bag. Right here in the center, where I drew that circle, that's where one of the purse feet is going to go. The other 4 purse feet are going to go on the side gusset pieces. So measure from your seam. Okay, so do this on the back so that you can see where the actual seam is. You're going to measure 1 inch over on both sides. And I'm measuring from the seam now, which really should be about the side of your decaville. And then from the side of the decaville, we're going to measure 1 inch up and make another line on all 4 edges here. So where the crosses are is where my feet are going to go. So if you decide that you want purse feet on this bag, that's how you need to mark the bottom. And because the bag is large, I do suggest putting 5 feet in. Go ahead and put one in the middle. So depending on what kind of feet you use is going to depend on how you install them. There are rivet style feet. There's screw style feet. There are these where you separate the 2 legs. And these are pretty tight. I usually end up having to use my awl to get in there or something. A screwdriver to separate them. So let me get them in. These that I have here are very, very strong, which is good. But it makes it a little bit hard to get them installed sometimes. And then 2 more. Once the feet are all installed on the back, this is how it's going to look on the front. So you see that the side feet are actually on the gusset, the side gusset, instead of the bottom. I like to put double-sided tape, and I usually use 1 inch on the bottom of these because it just kind of helps, you know, the glue on the tape kind of helps the feet stay in place. So our gusset is completed, and from here we are going to go ahead and, if you haven't put a coat of paint on the handle strap connectors, go ahead and do that real quick so that it'll dry, because that's our next step to get those handle connectors on the front and the back. The paint and edge coat on the edge of my connectors is now dry and ready to go. So you want to line these up and mark 3 inches down, just like we did on our side connectors. You're going to put some double-sided tape on there, and then find the center of your front and back panels, put a notch or some kind of marking there, and we're going to measure over, and I'll give you these measurements in pattern. We're going to peel the backing off the tape. Now your placement is as if you were going to line it up with the top, but of course we're going to be folding that back. So just kind of line that up, make sure your line is straight, and then peel this back, put one of your rectangle rings on here, and you're going to fold the edge down to your line, just like you did on the side connector. You can do your little notch here if you'd like to taper that in. Okay, and that's how we're going to sew that on. So we're going to do the same thing with this side. And there we go. Now I want to make sure that the bottom edges here are the same. You don't want one of your connectors being higher than the other. So from here I'm going to mark 1 inch down on both of these, and then we're going to sew them on. And we are going to sew around all 4 edges. So we're going to come up the side, across, down, and then we're also going to do this little curve here at the bottom. Doesn't really matter where you start. I'm just going to pull my threads through the back and tie them off so that I don't have any kind of anything like that showing on the front. And I do want to just kind of look at this and make sure it looks straight to the eye. Sometimes, depending on the pattern on your bag, you may have to adjust these just to get it to look right. Otherwise, it won't look proportional. So, even though this one over here doesn't look like it's further over, I mean, even though it is not further over, it almost looks like it is because of the pattern on the bag. I'm just going to slightly cheat it over a little bit. Let's see. Okay, I think that looks good. So here we go. I'm also going to go ahead and put little dots here in the corners where I'm going to turn on this curve just to make sure that that is even. So I'm approaching my dot. I'm going to make sure I'm right in the center of it. And then I'm just going to hand crank over to my other dot. Okay, we're going to come up the other side and pull my threads through while I'm down here. And I'm going to make sure I start and stop in the same hole. Pull this through. Tie it off, and then I usually put just a little bit of double-sided tape on this knot. The glue kind of helps hold it so it does not come out. I'm going to mark 1/2 inch down, just like we did on the side connector, and centered. And we're going to put a rivet. Just going to roll this so that I can get in there, punch my hole. And of course you can do this with a hand punch if you prefer. Okay, I'll set that rivet, and then we're going to do the same thing for this connector and the other side as well. Okay, so now the handle connectors are on. We're good to go on that. So we're going to put our piping on. So to make the piping, you're going to grab one of your piping strips. I'm going to draw a line down the center. And this is just going to be where the piping sits. We want to make sure that when we put the piping on, that it's directly on this line. From here, I'm going to put 1/4 inch double-sided tape, not on the line, but I'm going to put it between the line and one long edge. I'm not going to put it along the edge, I'm going to put it right in the middle. So take a piece of your piping. Here's what we have. We've got a line drawn on there, which might be hard to see because we have black. You see my tape, not at the actual edge. It's between the line and the center. And what we're going to do is place the cording on the center about an inch down, just like that. And then we're going to start to pinch this together. And you just want to line up the long edges here. And then I usually kind of run my finger along the edge of the cording just to kind of make sure that everything sits in there good and tight. You're going to go all the way down with this and just pinch the cording in. If your edges don't line up exactly right, it's okay. So we're going to, I mean, you want to get them close, but they don't need to be perfect. And then when you get to the other edge, don't close the piping all the way to the edge. Leave a section about like that with it open. So on the side you started, you can kind of feel where your piping is. You're going to make a little clip, a little triangle right here at the edge. So the triangle is going to be pointing towards the very edge of the cording. So don't do it here at the very edge of the entire piece. You're putting it right where I can feel the cording ending. And I'm just going to clip a little triangle in there. Okay, just like that. So now you're going to take and you're going to close that triangle on top of itself so that you have a little right angle there. I'm going to put a clip. Just kind of hold that in place. Okay. So we want to mark 1 inch down on the side of our bag, both the front and the back. The process for this on both sides is exactly the same. So I'm going to measure down and just make a mark in the seam allowance. And then we're going to take and put the very edge of this cording right up against that mark. And we're going to clip this in place. When you get to the curved edge, you're going to have to make little snips in your piping, which will allow it to curve. And then clip it along the bottom. We're going to put little snips again as we approach this curve. Don't snip all the way to the cording, you're just snipping about 1/4 of an inch in. When you get to the other mark, what we want to do is open this up, and we're going to clip our piping off right at that 1 inch mark that we made. Okay, I'm going to close this back up. And then just like the other side, right where the piping is, I'm going to put a little bit of a triangle. Just cut a little triangle in there. Okay, so I have my triangle. I'm just going to fold the piping on itself, and I should line up with that 1 inch mark. If you're a little above the 1 inch mark, all you have to do is open this back up, clip your piping a little bit more, move your triangle down, and then you'll be able to just move it. I'm going to double check and make sure this measurement is correct. And then I'm going to clip it. So any extra you have, go ahead and you can, I'll clip it a little closer when I'm done, but I'm going to leave myself just a little bit of room. Okay, so from here, you want to change your foot to either a piping foot or a zipper foot, either one. Now on this round, you're not looking to get super close. That's going to be when we sew the gusset on. But it's still going to help to not have a large foot here to get this sewn on. The second thing I want to tell you about is you can see my corners here. See how they have like little, the piping looks like it has little tucks in it? That's okay. What's going to happen is when we're asking this piping, this piece of fabric here, to bunch up on itself right now because we're turning it into itself. Once we sew it and we flip this out, it'll straighten out. So don't worry if you see that, you're not doing anything wrong. Just the fabric is doing what it can because, I mean, it's basically doing what it's supposed to. That's the only thing it can do. So no worries there. So I'm going to change my foot and then we'll get stitching. I have my zipper foot on, and what I'm going to do is start sewing on the bag itself and sew over this piping so that I can hold this angle in. And again, I'm not looking to get especially close right now. I'm just looking to hold this piping on. Okay, so the piping's sewn on, and you can see here how those angles are sewn. So the piping is just going to disappear into the side of the bag. Repeat the process for putting the piping on the second side. We are now completed with our front and back sections here. We have our piping on and should be ready to move on. We have our centers marked on both of these pieces because we marked them when we put our handle connectors on. So take your gusset piece and fold it in half and find the center and make a mark or cut a notch. And then we are going to go ahead and attach this. So starting at the bottom, go ahead and match up the center marks and put a few clips. Then from there, I'm going to take the side here and match the top. Then you're going to clip on down. When you get to the corner, you're going to see that it's not really going to quite fit that great. You may have to clip your gusset. So you always clip the straight edge. So in our case, the straight edge is the gusset, and I'm just going to put a couple of really small clips here. You want to put the clips about halfway up to the decoville, okay, not all the way up. And then as you push this down and in, those little clips will separate and you'll be able to match up the edges. And this is what it'll look like. Should fit in there perfect. So we're going to do the same thing with the other edge. Go ahead and match up the tops. Put a few clips. And then clip down the edge. And then again, as we go to come around this curve, it's going to be a little tight. It's going to act like it doesn't want to fit. But once you put the relief clips, the relief snips, I guess we should say, it should fit perfect. There's no rhyme or reason to these as far as spacing. Just make some clips. And then once you do that and you go to push this in, those clips will separate and it'll fit right in. So here it is all clipped on, clipped together all the way around. So you definitely want to make sure you have a zipper foot or a cording foot on at this point. And we're going to stitch this on. So you want to stitch from the gusset side, and at this pass you want to make sure you get really close to your cording, as close as you can get. As you come around the curve, just kind of move the gusset over as you need to. So I'm just going to kind of push it out of the way. And I'm just making sure that the foot stays up against that piping. Now, as you get to these seams here in the bottom, you can actually just kind of snip off the edge, which will help with the bulk. Do that in all these corners as I go around. And that way when we turn it, it'll be less bulk there. I'm going to clip away some of this bulk before I sew. Do it on this side as well. So I'm going to clip off these little wings here from the piping. And then I'm just going to turn this just to check it out and make sure everything looks okay. I'm going to do that before I actually cut back any of the seam allowance. If there's a place that you didn't get close enough, no worries. You just go back and stitch over it again. There's no need to take it apart. Just flip it back and stitch a little bit closer. All right, so I'm going to turn this back around. And you're going to clip the other side and stitch it exactly the same way you did the first side. Okay, the second side is sewn on, and so now we want to trim the seam allowance back. Don't trim it at the very tippity top of the bag. You want to start trimming right about where your cording, your piping piece here starts, because we want to get as much of the bulk out as we can, but we want to be able to open up this seam allowance when it comes time to put the bag together. So I'm just going to cut into it here and then cut on down. And I'm trimming off about 1/4 of an inch. And then when I get to right about where the piping is, I'm just going to veer off. All right, I'm going to repeat the same thing for the other side. All right, so now we get to turn the bag. Okay, and here we have the completed exterior of the bag. We have our sides with our strap adjusters. We have our bottom. Now we get to move on to the fun part, the lining. On the lining, let's start out with actually making the zipper placket at the top, the whole zipper section. So the first thing I usually do is to take a ruler and mark about 1 inch down on my zipper so that we can pinch it and kind of get those teeth going off to the side where we need them. So once you draw the line, you're going to want to get a couple pins, and you're just going to separate your zipper, and right on the line that you drew, you're going to pinch. Just fold it in half. And then take that pinch and lay it against the zipper teeth. So essentially what you're doing is you're forming a 45-degree angle with the zipper tape, which will allow the teeth to kind of veer off into the bag. You're going to do the same thing with the other side, and then you just want to make sure that they're even. So now we're just going to tack these in place. You can do that by either sewing on your machine, or you can take a hand tack, whichever you prefer. I'm just going to sew here on my machine. Just go back and forth one time just to hold it down, and do the same thing on the other. So now we have a tacked zipper, little right angles. So from here, we're going to start by working on the zipper placket. So I have my lining and main fabric zipper placket pieces here all lined up, and I'm going to put some 1/2 inch double-sided tape on each short edge. From here, take one of the main pieces and one of the lining pieces, and on the main piece, go ahead and fold back both edges. So you're going to fold it right along the edge of your double-sided tape, so a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now, if your machine does not like double-sided tape, or if you want to put a smaller portion, maybe a 1/4 inch or 1/8 of an inch, you can actually mark down 1 inch on the zipper placket, and then you're going to fold your raw edge down to the 1 inch mark. You're going to fold only one side of the lining. Then you're going to put double-sided tape, this is 1/8 of an inch double-sided tape, on one side of the main and one side of the lining. And this is on the right side, one of the long sides of each piece on the right side of the fabric. And the edge that's not folded yet on the lining, put the 1/8 of an inch tape, maybe not quite all the way down. So we're going to peel the backing off this tape, and you're going to line up the fold of the zipper where that edge curves in just about even with the fold on the fabric. So you don't want to put the zipper teeth all the way to the end. You want to bring it in about a 1/2 inch. And you're just going to lay it right on top of the double-sided tape. Don't pull on your zipper, because that'll give you a wonky zipper. Just want to lay it right down. So just to give you an idea of how that works, see how those teeth are right along that 1/2 inch line there. So now we're going to peel the backing off of the lining piece. You're going to place it on top. Start with the folded edge. So the edge that you're already folded down, line up with the edge of your main piece here. So now those edges are perfectly aligned. Then line up the long edge, and when you get to the other side, peel the backing off your tape, and then fold this however long you need to fold it, however much you need to fold it, so that it exactly equals the edge of the main fabric. So in my case, I had to fold it a little less than a 1/2 inch. Okay, then you're going to stitch this on. For some reason my tape is not holding very well, so I'm going to put a couple clips on here. Sometimes you need both. Once you have it stitched on, go ahead and just clip the rest of your zipper off, that little bit there, and burn it so that it doesn't fray. And then we're going to fold these two sections so that the wrong sides are together. We're going to clip them, and then we're going to attach the other side. Okay, so when you attach the other side, you want to fold back just one side of each. So my main fabric, I'm going to fold back one edge, and then the lining I'm going to fold back one edge. Put my double-sided tape, 1/8 of an inch, along one side. Then I'm going to do the same thing with the lining. From here, we're going to go ahead and lay the right side of the main fabric on top of the zipper, and we're going to start by using this edge that we already turned under. We're going to line that up with the edge that we have here already turned under, just to make sure that they're even and equal. And then we're going to just lay the zipper on top the rest of the way. Make sure we're even down here. And you can see that this is even with this here. So when we get to the other end, peel the backing off the tape and fold it so that the other side is even with the other main piece we just attached. Okay, and my zipper teeth end up being right where they need to be. And then these two pieces here are even. So we're doing the same thing. We're going to peel the backing off our tape on the lining. I'm going to line it up. And then when we get to the other side, we're going to fold it back. So I'm folding it back so it's even with all of the other pieces. So all my pieces now are even up here at the top. So I'm going to go ahead and stitch this on. We'll go ahead and cut back the zipper, burn the edge, fold this back, this side, now so that the wrong sides are together. I'm just going to kind of pull this out and run my finger across it. Just kind of finger press it down. So now on each side, we're going to start here at the end. We're going to back stitch. We're going to come up to this edge. We're going to top stitch down by the zipper. Then we're going to close this side as well. And then we're going to just base this close. Now, if you have a machine with a walking foot, this is going to be these larger humps here where you turn is going to be the potential place where your foot is going to eat your materials. So I always have a piece of leather handy to protect my project so I don't ruin it. So right here, I'm just going to take like one stitch or maybe two, and then I'm going to put my foot or my leather back here just to make sure it protects my project. Now, as I sew, I'm actually going to put my hands against this zipper teeth and kind of pull the zipper teeth, and then on this side, I'm going to have my hand against the actual material, and I'm just going to slightly pull this so that I get a nice flat seam here. You see how that grabbed that leather? That means that it would have ate my vinyl. So right in this area, you can see my foot is off. The back of the foot is off of the bed of the machine. So I'm going to roll, show you how to do this here. I'm going to roll this so that I can form a little hump jumper. And I'm going to leave an edge here. This is going to go under the foot to protect my project, and this is going to act as the hump jumper. And then when I get to this end, I'm going to do the same thing. And then we have our zipper placket. So let's take our gusset piece. We're going to take our two smaller upper gusset pieces, upper lining pieces. We're going to put the short edge. You can see that this is actually tapered in. That shorter edge is going to go along the edge of the gusset. So flip it down, and then we're going to stitch this and then top stitch. Put one on that end, I'm going to put one on this end. Go ahead and flip these up, keeping the seam allowance going towards the upper lining, and we're going to top stitch. And our lining gusset is done. So we're going to set that aside. And we're going to start working on the lining. And you're going to start with your longest piece first. So you want to place this piece down, right side down. And you're going to measure from the left side. You're going to measure in the measurement that I give you in the pattern. And you're going to draw a line. And you're going to draw it from top to bottom. Now, these edges are slightly tapered in so that your lining fits nice and snug. So when you measure, make sure you're measuring from this top corner, line one of the lines of your ruler up with the top to make sure your line is straight. You're going to flip this piece over, and from the right side, you're going to measure in, again, the measurement I give you. Make sure your ruler is lined up You're basically measuring from this top edge. Make sure this is lined up on the top, and then you're going to draw a line. Okay, so now take your smaller piece, you're going to place it right side up, and from the left side, your left side, you're going to measure, again from the top, make sure everything's lined up at the top, but you're going to measure over the measurement I give you in the pattern. And you're going to draw a line from top to bottom. Place your smaller piece right side up, place your longer piece right side down. Now this long line that you drew on the back side, you're going to measure or line up with the line that you drew on the smaller piece from this left side. So you have one line on the right side of the small piece. You have a line on the right side and the wrong side of the large piece. You're going to line up the right side of the small piece line with the wrong side of the long piece. So I'm going to clip these. And then I'm going to measure down from the top and up from the bottom a 1/2 inch. And right where that line intersects is where we are going to sew 2. Do not sew past that line. So this line here, I made it in a silver pen so you can see it a little better. That's the line that goes all the way up and down. That's where we're going to sew. So we're going to sew from that 1/2 inch mark down to this one here. So let me mark this in silver so you can see it a little better. This line goes all the way up and down. Okay. Okay, so hopefully that makes more sense. So we're going to sew from point to point. Okay, so you can see there I stopped right at that point. So now you want to take your long pieces and put them wrong sides together, and the short pieces and put them right sides together. So the seam that you stitched now is right up here, right through the middle. And now I'm looking at the line that I drew on the right side of that long piece. Just going to clip this. And I'm going to clip down 1/2 inch from the top on my line. Now, I didn't want to make my line anything too dark because I don't want this to show on the finished bag. But there's a line going right up here. Right on that line, I'm going to clip down 1/2 inch. And then I'm going to clip up from the bottom 1/2 inch. Okay, remove your clips. Open this piece up. And let's put some double-sided tape. So I'm going to put 1/4 inch double-sided tape just along the top here. And I'm going from the cut to the other cut. So from snip to snip. Don't go beyond. I'm going to do the same thing at the bottom. Okay, so there are my snips. I just put the tape right in between. So now you're going to fold this edge up a 1/2 inch. You're going to fold the top edge down a 1/2 inch. Okay, so we have something that looks like that. So now take this, you're still looking at the long panel. You're going to take the shorter edge and fold it over. And these folded edges should line up. Go ahead and clip them. And what we're going to do is on the bottom. So the bottom is where your curved edges are. Okay, curved edges. You're going to sew across the bottom, and then you're going to sew right on top of the line you drew all the way up to the 1/2 inch mark here. So basically where these edges are folded over. Okay, so now your lining looks like this. So you have a larger section where your wallet and such will go, and we're going to put pockets on that section. And then you have the water bottle section here. We're going to put some stabilizer in this section once we get our pockets on. Now let's work on our pockets. We're going to need the 2 zipper pockets and the zipper. We're going to place the zipper, the wrong side of the zipper, on the right side of one of the pocket pieces. You can either use some 1/8 of an inch double-sided tape here, or you can clip it. And we're going to stitch this on. So now you want to take the zipper and you're going to flip it so that the zipper tape is flat on the pocket. And you're going to top stitch right here on this zipper's tape, on the seam allowance. You want to hold the seam allowance flat. Then you're going to take this piece, now you're going to take the wrong side of the zipper again and put it against the right side of the other pocket piece. We're going to clip that and stitch it on. And then just like before, we're going to make sure that the zipper tape is flat. And we're going to stitch the seam allowance down. I'm going to burn the edge of my zipper here. It's starting to fray. We're going to set this aside. We're going to take our slip pocket. I'm going to fold it so it's right sides together. And then we're going to stitch down each short edge here. From here, take one of the edges that you sewed and fold it right along your stitch line. Right, so my stitches are now right at the top of this fold. I'm going to stick my thumb, my finger in. I'm going to hold that fold down, and I'm just going to pop it out. I'm just going to turn and pop it out. Do the same thing on this side. And then I'm going to take my little tool here and poke those edges out. Sometimes you don't need to, sometimes you can just kind of shimmy them out like that. And then you can see that's a perfect turn, with no cutting or trimming. And I need my tool for this side. So here's the tool I use. It's a little ball point turner, and you've got one large ball on this side and then a smaller ball on this side. I sell these on the website. They're really great. I highly recommend them. I'm just going to stick one of those balls in there and just poke that corner out. Okay, and then we have another perfect corner. So this is waterproof canvas. You can put some heat on it on the right side, but don't ever touch the wrong side with your iron because it will melt. I'm just gonna kind of run my finger along this here, or maybe even run my tool along the seam. Get the seam out real good. And then I'm going to baste the top closed. So I'm just going to run a basting stitch right along the top. I'm just going to use a scant 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Just enough to hold that closed. So take one of your accent pieces here, or the accent piece, and we're going to put, you can do this one of two ways. You can either clip this on, or you can use double-sided tape. My machine doesn't scream too loud with double-sided tape, so I'm going to go ahead and put some of that on there. I'm going to cut this down just a little bit and put double-sided tape on both long edge. So, put it here. Now I'm going to line the top of this pocket up just shy of the middle of this accent piece. If you're not sure where that is, you can use your ruler and draw a line, and then just place the top of this pocket under that line. And then you're just going to fold the other side over. Nice and tight against the edge of that pocket. And we're going to top stitch that. And then once we top stitch, we're going to cut off the extra little pieces here. And there's our slip pocket. So we're going to set this aside. If you haven't done so already, also go ahead and put your zipper pull on the zipper so we don't forget that later. So before we put the stabilizer in, we want to go ahead and put our pockets in. So we're going to be working with the two longer edges of the lining. So the pockets are going to go on this longer edge and this longer edge. These little short edges over here, again, that's going to form where our water bottle is going to go. So just open this up so you see one of the longer edges and pretend this is your entire lining. Go ahead and find the center so we can center our pocket. You've just found the center of this one piece. Grab one of your pockets, doesn't matter which one, and we are going to center it. Grab a couple of pins. And I give you the measurements and the pattern as to where you need to center this. Put a couple of pins. Now if you want a divider for a pen or something like that, you can certainly do that. You could cut this pocket in half. And I think if I cut it in half, it will be the perfect amount for a cell phone. Yep. So I'm going to do that. I'm just going to take this and draw a line down the center, and I'll cut this pocket in half. Okay, so we're going to stitch down the side, across, up and down, across, and then back up. from here I'm going to go ahead and make some holes for rivets, because I like to put some rivets on the very corners of my pocket to kind of hold them. Pockets get a lot of wear and tear, people going in and out, so this just gives it a little extra stability. Whenever you put rivets in lining like this, you always want to put some Decaville Heavy on the back to kind of hold it in place and give it a little more stability. You don't want those rivets pulling through to the right side. So usually the right side has some extra stability because of the pocket accent. You've got some faux here, or leather, or vinyl, whatever you may have. But the back, you definitely want to give it that extra little bit. So I'm going to get these in, go set them, and then we'll get the zipper pocket in. So this pocket is completed. We have the rivets installed, ready to go. So now we're going to flip this back piece out of the way and deal with our other large side. So the first thing we want to do is find the centers, top and bottom. And then we're going to take our zipper overlay. We're going to put some 1/4 inch double-sided tape on this. We're going to center it. And again, we're just working in this one particular area from our stitch line to the edge. Now we're going to stitch this on the outside edge all the way around. I'm going to pull my threads through the back and make sure now that your pocket, your divider here, the other side of your lining is out of the way. Alright, I'm going to pull these threads through to the back. Finish the seam. Start in the same hole, or stop in the same hole that I started in. And then we're going to tie these off. Now if you're new to my channel, you will know that, or you will see that this is the way I do all my zipper pockets. I feel like it gives it a much more professional look, much cleaner finished edge look, where you don't have any puckers in your pockets. If you've never tried this method, I'd suggest you do. Just give it a try, see what you like. The more you sew, the more you're gonna realize what you like, what method you like, and what method you don't, what works for you, what doesn't. Now we're gonna cut out the center of this zipper overlay. Just make sure when you cut, you put the tip of your scissors below your overlay. You don't want to cut the overlay. And then we're going to flip it over and we're going to cut the back out. The back doesn't have to be pretty, does not have to be perfect. No one is going to see it unless they take your bag apart, which hopefully they're not buying it to take it apart, or they're not using it to take it apart. Okay, so there's the back, and then we have the front. So we're going to take the zipper pocket that we put together in an earlier step. I'm going to make sure my zipper pull is going towards the left, which there's no rule on this. It's just personal preference. If you're left-handed, you may want it pulling towards the right. I'm going to put some double-sided tape, and I usually just put it right on the edge of the zipper tape. That keeps it out of the window for the zipper overlay. We don't want to see it. All right, let's peel the backing off this tape and get this zipper centered. If it isn't exactly right, just peel it up and do it again. And then we're going to stitch around the short, or the inside edge here, and stitch this zipper on. Now, when you do that, make sure that your pocket is open, because if it's not, you're going to sew your zipper pocket closed. Okay? So make sure you can see the pocket here is open in the back. Pull this beginning thread through to the back. We're going to stop where we started. Now this, because of the divider, this is a drop-in lining. So we're going to have to close this pocket. So just pull this upper section down. Go ahead and clip it. Whenever you do your pockets this way, you're going to have about an inch left over here at the bottom. No worries. See, you got extra there. Just cut that off. And now from the right side, so flip this over so you can see your right side. Take all of this, move it out of the way so that you can see your zipper pocket. Okay, you can see the edge of your zipper, and that's where we're going to start. Back stitch really good, stitch down, across, and up the other side. Move all this out of the way. And then we're going to move this out of the way. Come right up the side. Our zipper pocket completed. If you have any extra, you can cut it off. If you have a lot of extra seam allowance here, you can certainly cut that down if you want to. I don't have that much. I'm just going to leave it. And that is done. So grab your key fob piece. You can either clip this or put some double-sided tape. I'm just going to put some 1/4 inch double-sided tape on here on one side. Then I'm going to pinch these two sides together. So just take one long edge and fold it over to the other long edge. And then just try to line these up as close as you can. We will trim off a little bit once we sew it. Okay, sew it using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. So because we used a 1/4 inch seam allowance, we can go ahead and trim off 1/8 of an inch from the edge with the raw edges. The reason why we want to do this is because it's hard to line these up exactly right. Sometimes you're off just a tad, and by trimming it off, we'll know the edges are perfect. If you want to edge coat it after that, you certainly can. I usually don't worry so much about edge coating the key fob just because it's on the inside, and unless something's really obvious, like if I'm using black and it's white or something like really bright, then I might go ahead and put edge coat, but otherwise I don't worry about it. And then you're going to put your 1/2 inch swivel clasp on one edge and just rivet it in place. So once I trim this back, I'll put this on and then just put a rivet there, and then the key fob will be done. Here's the completed key fob. You can see that that was just riveted on. And just to give you an idea, this is what I cut off. Just about 1/8 of an inch off of the long edge here. Okay. So, key fob is complete. Now that we have all our pockets on, we're going to go ahead and put the stabilizer in. So just go ahead and slide it into the divider piece. It should just slide right in. You may have to coax it a little bit, but it'll get in there. And it should fit just perfectly. So you see, there it is in there. And we're just going to top stitch this closed. Make sure you don't sew onto your linings So don't sew onto this part or this part over here. Make sure that the water bottle lining pieces, these smaller pieces, are out of the way. You don't want to sew them to your divider. Okay, there we go. So from here we want to go ahead and put the zipper placket on. I always start with the side that has the zipper pocket because I want to make sure my zippers are going in the same direction. Now you're not going to center this necessarily. You want to place it about 1/4 of an inch from where the divider is here. So you can measure be about 1/4 to about 1/2 inch. You just kind of look at the other side too, because we're taking a 1/2 inch seam allowance over here, so that way the amounts that it is from the divider to this end of the bag will be about the same. So you'll have about 3/4 of an inch on this side. And then between 1/4 and 1/2 on that side. So we're just going to clip this. Baste it on. So I'm just make sure I have about the same distance from the divider. And then just make sure when you baste it too that you don't have your flap under there. You want to make sure you move that out of the way. And then baste this on. Now that those sides are basted, get your upper lining pieces and your key fob. Now I want the key fob to be on the same side as where my zipper opens, okay, not on the other side. So I'm actually going to kind of slide it in here and put it right against the divider and baste that in. Okay, so now when you put your upper lining on, of course it has a shorter side and a longer side. The shorter side goes against the lining. So make sure you line it up and flip it over and clip it on. You don't want to put the wrong side on there. As you do this, your lining extends with this little water bottle section. So you're going to have to go around the divider. Okay, so see how and clip it here. Okay, that's your whole upper lining. So as I sew, I'm going to take my divider and I'm just going to lay it flat on this side first. I'm going to sew up to it. And then once I get to the divider, I'm going to lift this up. I'm going to flip this whole thing to the other side, and then I'm going to finish stitching. So you're going to see there's like a bubble here on your upper lining. That's okay because you have your gusset kind of, or your divider kind of folded over. Don't worry, as you stitch and you move this over, it'll all work out. It'll all be okay. And I'm actually going to unclip the very edge of this where my water bottle part is, so this can lay flat. Okay, so go ahead and stitch this on. So I'm going to stitch right to the edge of the divider. I'm going to stop right there. Then I'm just going to fold this over. Kind of move this out of the way, fold it over so that the divider is going in the other direction. And then continue stitching. So from here, flip this up, and now you can top stitch it. And you're going to top stitch it with the seam allowance going up towards the upper lining. So that's on. You're going to repeat the exact same thing for the other side. So our upper linings are now on. There's our little divider. And now that we have our pockets on, we have our upper lining on, we're going to go ahead and put our gusset on. So you want to go ahead and on the actual lining pieces, we don't have the center of the lining piece yet. So this piece runs the entire way from curve corner to curve corner. So fold that in half and either make a mark or notch to mark the center on both pieces. So you're going to match these curved corners. Now it's going to look like it's off center because to me the center of this panel should be right about here, but my mark is over here, and it's because this is the center of the entire lining panel, as if the divider was not here. Okay? We want to take our gusset and find the center of it. And match those centers on one side, doesn't matter which side's first. And go ahead and put some clips on here. take the upper part of your gusset, the upper lining part, and make sure that the lining, upper lining and upper lining of the gusset match exactly right here. Clip. Get my zipper out of the way so I don't accidentally stitch on that. Just clip that. I'm going to clip on down. Now, when you get to the corner here, you're going to have to make little snips in your gusset, because remember, you always clip the straight edge. I'm just making about 1/4 inch, and then I'll be able to fit that right in that curve. Okay, so see how that fits right in once I make my snips. So you're going to have to just kind of fold this out of the way. This is your divider and your other side. And clip your other edge. Again, make sure your upper linings match. And then just clip your gusset to get it to fit into that corner. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and sew this on. Now your divider, since it's a 1/2 inch shorter than your bag, you should be able to just sew right next to it and not have any problems there. Okay, and just kind of move it out of the way as you come around. Now I'm going to make sure I start right where my upper linings meet so that I can make sure I don't have any problems there with it shifting. Put my needle in, and go backwards to the top, and then come on down. So I'm approaching where my divider is. Move that out of the way. Okay, so here's what we have. Okay, So I'm going to make sure this zipper is out of the way. I'm going to clip it. And then I am going to clip around. Do the same thing. Make sure my upper linings match. And clip your gusset. We're going to sew this on. So I'm approaching the divider. So here is what our lining looks like. We have our divider here for our water bottle. Kind of cool how it all comes together. I'm going to cut back my seam allowances, but I'm going to start up a little bit. I don't want to cut right at the edge because I want to be able to open these seam allowances. So I'm just going to start right about where the bulk is here from my upper lining. All right, so as I mentioned, this is a drop-in lining, which means we're going to drop this right into the exterior of the bag and top stitch it all together. So you can put some double-sided tape on this and fold the edge over, or you can just put it in and clip it. I like to put some double-sided tape just to help me hold it. I'm going to do that. Just run it along the top here. And then I'm going to use the edge of my Decoville to help me determine where to fold it. I'm going to open up these seams as I go around. That Decoville will give us a nice crisp edge. So I'm using 1/4 inch double-sided tape here because when I fold this over the 1/2 inch, when I sew the bag together, it will not be in my seam allowance. Okay, and come around all the way. And stop right there. So I'm going to peel the tape off, or the backing of the tape, not the tape, and then just fold this over right around the decabill. Okay, just like that. So now we have a nice edge on the side of that lining. I'm going to take my main bag, the main part of my bag. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put some 1/4 inch seam allowance, or 1/4 inch double-sided tape right along the edge here, all the way around. And I'm going to fold it over the decabill as well. Now you could have done this before you turn the bag. I find sometimes when I do that, the tape comes off as I'm turning it. So I'll actually like to do it afterwards, even though it may not be quite as easy. And you can do it in sections if it's a little easier. And open up the seam allowances as I go around them. So I'm going to peel the backing off this tape and fold it over as well. Okay, so now we have a nice crisp edge all the way around the bag here. So from here, we are going to slide this in. Now, presumably the front of the bag, I mean it's the same as the back, but if you want it where your tag is, think about where you want your water bottle part to be. So if you're carrying the bag with your tag out to the world, if you want the water bottle part on the back side of you, then you're going to put it on the right. If you want it on the front side of you, you're going to put it on the left. That is personal preference, however you would like to do that. So from here we're going to match up the corners. Okay, I'm matching up the corners here. And then once the corners are matched up, on the sides, I'm going to go ahead and match up the front and the back. All right, we have a perfect fit. So we're going to go over to my cylinder arm machine and we are going to stitch this up and then put our handles on and we will be completed. Now as I approach one of these corners here, go real slow. And I'm going to stick this under just to be safe. So as I approach this corner, go ahead and stick this under again just to be safe. It's all top stitched. Everything's looking good. We only have a couple things left. One is to add the zipper pull. So I'm going to go ahead and remove my clips where I kept my zipper out of the way. And burn my edges here. They're looking a little rough. And I'm just going to add my pull. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and put an end on my pull. You can either put a piece of fabric or a piece of hardware on the end of your zipper. I'm going to go ahead and opt for the hardware. So now that that's on, all we have left is the handles and the crossbody strap. So let's talk about the crossbody strap first. We need to go ahead and get the hardware on there. So to do that, you want to take one end, thread it up through the strap adjuster, down the other side, and you're going to go ahead and either sew or put a rivet. And I usually just use rivets for all this. So we have the rivet. On the other end, you're going to put your swivel clasp. Go ahead and slide it down and then feed that end back up through the strap adjuster and down the other end. So I'm going to just make this a little bit larger here and through the other end. So now we have our strap adjuster, we have swivel clasp. So then on the other side, the other end, you're going to put your other swivel clasp. So just slide it on and then put a rivet. Okay, so I'll set these rivets, but that's all it takes to do a crossbody strap. And then your strap is completed. Okay, so now let's talk about handles. So on the handle, you can either put 1 or 2 rivets in. So depending on how you want to do it, if you want to put 2, you're going to have to leave a little bit extra so that you have enough room to put 2 rivets in. What I suggest is to go ahead and leave enough room for 1 right now. So it's going to be folding it back about 1.5 inches. Maybe put a clip on there. And just see if you like the length of the handle. It's a way to adjust your handles without redoing them. So if that's too long for you, then you can just go ahead and put 2 rivets in here. Just fold it over a little more. If it's about right, I wouldn't do the 2 because you're going to take up at least another inch. So I think that looks like a good length. So I'm just going to go ahead and punch holes for 1 rivet. I'm using large rivets here. You can certainly, in addition to putting a rivet, sew if it makes you feel a little more secure. I'm just going to make sure that the handles are folded back about the same distance. And put one more in. Okay, so I'm just going to make sure that when I put my other handle on, I'm going to do exactly the same thing. Just make sure they're the same length, and then the bag is complete. Okay, it is now complete. Isn't this cool? I love this fabric. Definitely has some metallic to it, but it's black and navy, so it's kind of a mix between conservative and a little jazzy. Again, the 40-ounce water bottle, like you saw in the beginning, fits in here great. You have plenty of other room for whatever other essentials that you want to carry. And I will say, this is something I haven't mentioned before, when I designed the bag, I was a little concerned that if you have a water bottle, a full water bottle in here, it might make the bag topsy-turvy. Like, I don't have anything in this side right now, and I was afraid that it would make your bag want to kind of sway to one side. I had Leah, who inspired this bag, test it. She's been using it now for about 6 months, and she carries water in it all the time, and also essentials. So she has her wallet and she has everything else she carries, and I was specifically asking her about the balance of the bag. She said once you put your wallet and you put everything else in here, it is not a problem. So that's why I went ahead and continued and wrote the pattern, because sometimes I do have people test the bags in reality first to see what kind of problems they might come into just in the functionality of the bag, and she assured me that it was a-okay. So I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Again, the Leah tote. I do have this on the website. If it's not on there yet, it'll be on there very, very shortly. We're in the process of cutting it and getting it on the website, so be looking for that. And until next time, y'all, happy sewing.